8K televisions are the next big thing in TVs, but they've always been insanely expensive. Prices coming down. Is now the right time to consider 8K? I'm Roger Chang, and this is your Daily Charge. Joining me is CNET's foremost TV expert, David Katzmeyer. Welcome, David.
Good to be here, Roger.
So there is a new 8K TV that won't entirely break your bank, right? Tell me about the TCL TV.
So TCL is known as a relatively affordable TV, and in our reviews, we've given it some pretty good picture quality. The higher end models are some of the best, picture quality for the money. And so they said this year that they're finally going to come out with an 8K TV. They're going to be joining Samsung, LG, Sony in the 8K race. All those brands are a lot more expensive than this TCL. So 65 inch is the smallest you can get this TV in. It's $2,200. And the cheapest, non-TCL 8K TV out there at 65 inches is about $3,000. So that's a big discount. TCL is being very aggressive with the price.
And just so I can get some good context around that, it's like a 65-inch 4K, a very nice 65-inch 4K TV. How much is that going to cost you?
About $2,300. The best metric is LG's OLED TVs, and those are 4K resolution. The affordable ones are 4K resolution, and their C series, which is their mainstream series, which is a spectacular, television, right now costs about $2,200, $2,300. So about $100. Slightly more expensive than the TCL, but it's an OLED, and based on everything I've seen, and I'll say this up front, I haven't seen this TCL 8K TV yet in person, so I don't know for sure what its picture quality is like, but just based on that underlying technology, OLED versus, the QLED LCD technology that TCL uses, I think the LG OLED will have a better overall picture despite having lower resolution.
Got it. Okay, and I think that's the real question, and something I want to kind of break down for our listeners is, what is the primary benefit of 8K? I think I understand conceptually that, it's higher resolution. 8K seems like a bigger number than 4K, and that must be good. But what does that actually mean? Why should people care?
So it is a much bigger number. Let me just take a step back. 8K TVs have been on the market now for, I think, 3 or 4 years. Samsung has been leading the charge in marketing 8K. Again, the prices haven't come down, but it's 4 times as many pixels as a 4K television. So right up front, you have that big impact of, wow, this is so many more pixels. The pixels themselves are proportionately smaller. The thing is, 4K TVs, they're very, very detailed already. It really boils down to diminishing returns. If you're sitting very close to a very large TV, in general, you might get some benefit from 8K in a best case scenario. But if you're sitting at a normal screen distance, to a normal television, then you're really going to have a hard time telling the difference between 4K and 8K. So it's really beneficial, much more beneficial than larger screen sizes, talking like 75, 85, even larger screens. And that's kind of the catch with 8K. It's kind of hard to see that benefit, again, best case scenario.
And I know it took years for HD content and then now 4K content to become available. And I know it's a bit of a challenge. Like, is there any 8K content out there?
So there's a few YouTube videos. There's a couple higher end video cards for gamers that'll output in 8K resolution. The really high end NVIDIA RTX PC cards. The Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, they say that they'll eventually work with 8K games, but there's, they don't support that resolution. There's no games right now. That'll be a year or two down the road at the earliest, and then there might be some issues there. So really the answer is no, Roger. There isn't anything you can watch in 8K today.
So why, as you noted, these have been around for 3 years. Like, why even buy an 8K TV right now? Is it just for bragging rights, or is there an actual practical benefit to it?
So we've been, up to this point, we've been telling people, no, don't buy an 8K TV. And just for the reasons we talked about, there's no 8K content and they're a lot more expensive. And, it's hard to see the benefit. So those are pretty compelling reasons to avoid it. Now, TCL at charging, $2,200 for a 65-inch 8K TV, they might make that a little bit more of a difficult question, a little softer no from me. But again, just looking, again, I haven't reviewed these yet, but looking at the comparison between LG OLED TV, which again has better picture quality than any LCD TV that I've seen, which includes the TCL, regardless of its resolution. I still think it's going to be hard to recommend that. Now, this could, it could be worth it. The detail might be really nice, especially at the 75-inch size, once more 8K content becomes available. But right now, it's going to be difficult, I think. Even though this is the cheapest 8K TV out there, it's still pretty expensive.
And the 75-inch model, how much does that one cost?
So that's $3,000, okay. And there's a little bit more of a delta there. So the equivalent OLED is a 77-inch model at $500 more. Okay. But again, when you're paying that much money, again, I haven't tested these, but my gut says it's going to be worthwhile for most people to step up to that 77-inch OLED instead of getting an 8K TCL.
Got it. And I guess just going back to sort of the whatever benefits you might be able to see, assuming there was 8K content out there or readily available out there, like, would you be able to see a difference between 8K and 4K, or is it getting to the point where like the resolution is that sharp that your eyes don't really see a difference unless you're like really, really close to that TV?
Yeah, so that's really the question. It's in the 8K TVs that I've seen, it is difficult to see the difference. You're talking about very subtle differences, and this is with kind of the best 8K content out there, and so. Again, resolution is one of these things that it's great when you have it, but it's kind of table stakes. Things like contrast, color, HDR performance, brightness, those will have a lot more of an obvious impact on picture quality, be a lot more visible in a side-by-side comparison between two TVs, and that's how I do my reviews. And so it'll be really interesting to see, if 8K content, if they can, in a couple of years, figure out ways to optimize it, actually make it look better, again, with that limitation of needing a pretty big screen and or a pretty close seating distance.
All right. Well, just lastly, if you are looking for a new TV and an 8K TV isn't necessarily in your range, or even an OLED TV isn't in your range, any recommendations for what folks should be looking for?
So the 4K version of this TCL TV, the 6 series, is currently my top pick. Best TV for the money. Really good picture, 65 inches. It's a little expensive now. They're having some supply issues. It's around $1,000. I expect once the TV buying season really kicks in, it'll be less than that. Sorry, it's $1,300 now, but I think it'll get down around $1,000 again later this year. But there's been some supply things this year. Vizio also has a really nice 65-inch TV, a little bit less expensive now, about $700. Again, 4K resolution. Picture quality isn't going to be as good as OLED, but a lot more affordable, a lot more mainstream, and definitely a great TV for the foreseeable future.
All right. And I guess lastly, how many TVs are currently in your home right now? Because I know you're testing them as you work remotely.
Yeah, I got my basement TV lab going, Roger. It's maybe I have 15 to 20 in here. I've got a pod, one of those big moving boxes out in my backyard. I swap them out between there and the basement, and getting in a few new ones coming in soon. So, it never stops.
Well, David, thank you for your time and sacrifice reviewing all these TVs. You can check out all of our 8K.
Somebody's got to do it, Roger.
You can check out all of our 8K and OLED TV coverage on CNET.com. If you have any questions, hit us up on Twitter at The Daily Charge, or sign up for direct text messages from me by heading to cnet.co/dailycharge. And if you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps us out. For The Daily Charge, I'm Roger Chang. Thanks for listening.